Unfortunately, most CEOs lack confidence in their company's strategy. A survey by Strategy and a consulting company, for example, found that more than half of senior executives don't believe they have a winning strategy. 4 out of 5 admit that the strategy isn't well understood within the organization. 2 out of 3 CEOs say that their organization lacks the skills to create a good strategy and create value. And a whopping 9 out of 10 concede that they're missing major market opportunities because of bad strategy. Another study, which was published by Harvard Business Review, found that when asking people about strategy throughout an organization, some 80% think that they are actually aligned on what the strategy is. But then the researchers asked people to write down in a couple of sentences what they think the strategy was, and comparing these statements, they found that instead of the 80%, really only 25% of people were aligned on what the strategy actually was. So of course this disconnect and this misalignment creates lots of problems. So the same study actually went into the details and found that if there was a large gap in strategic alignment, obviously people, employees are more skeptical about the effectiveness of the strategy. They are more skeptical of the implementation, and implementation is both slower and of lower quality. Now, in my experience, all these challenges, the root cause of these challenges is what I call bad strategy, which begs obviously the question of what is bad strategy and what is a good strategy. My name is Mark Snoekes. I'm a strategy advisor to CEOs and a facilitator of better strategy. And in this episode, I'll explain what good and bad strategies are and how to know when to take action if you have a bad strategy on your hands. Now, this idea of bad strategy, good strategy, bad strategy actually was introduced by a former UCLA professor by the name of Richard Ronald, who wrote a book titled Good Strategy and Bad Strategy. And I've been working with his ideas for over 10 years now, and during that time I've also evolved my own thinking on this topic of what makes a good strategy. But let's start with bad strategy. Now, bad strategy is first of all not about having no strategy. Bad strategy is also not so much about having a strategy that maybe doesn't work that well. Bad strategy is really about calling something a strategy when what you have is not really a strategy at all. So let me explain this with an example. My clients often come to me saying, okay, we got this strategy, and then usually they show me a PowerPoint with some 200 slides, and then they say, but we don't really know what to do with this. So what is the next step is unclear. And a couple of months ago, a CEO of a medium-sized company, some 200 employees, about 50 million in revenue, came to me with such a document that a traditional consulting company had prepared. It was 157 slides, 105 slides of analysis, very good analysis, very detailed. And then they identified out of that analysis 5 challenges, and for each of these 5 challenges, they proposed 3 solutions. I guess somehow it just looked better on the slide to have 3 solutions for every issue. But anyhow, and then they had some details about how to implement these measures, and interestingly, always financial projections for each of these measures, and they were presented in isolation. Now, the problem with all of this is that it was just a long list of 15 measures, but there was not really any logic behind these measures. There was no story to tell, there was no focus. There was just a long list of things that they thought needed to get done. And of course, if you present such a document, nobody will be able to recall all the details, and nobody will be able to tell you what is the strategy. Also because there is just no strategy, there's just a long list of things to do. Right? This is something what the prominent management thinker Roger Martin calls a plan is not a strategy. And my client actually says, okay, we don't know what to do with this. We have no idea how to put all of this together, and we need somebody who helps us to make sense of it and actually develop a strategy out of all that analysis and out of all that document. So to help you spot such bad strategies, here are a couple of things that you need to pay attention to. First, look out for fluff, buzzwords, too many esoteric concepts which give the illusion of high-level thinking. So this is a vision statement that's filled with vague language, for example, like we need to leverage synergies, we need disruptive innovation, we need a paradigm shift. So things like these without any definition of what is actually meant and without any concrete steps behind on how to achieve these goals that you might have. Second challenge is failing to face the challenge. So you don't dig deep enough into the root cause of your challenges. You focus on, say, revenues, and you just think that you can sell more if you manage to lower prices, when in reality your product has become obsolete or your quality sucks, and that's why your sales are dropping. So failure to look really into the details of what is going on. Third sign of bad strategy is mistaking goals for strategy. So you state things like, okay, we will grow our revenues by 20%, or we will be number one in our market, without actually specifying and having a clear approach on how to do that, without acknowledging what's keeping you from getting there and how to overcome these barriers. And then bad strategic objectives. So you have objectives, but they are bad strategic objectives. So again, long list of things to do, like what I mentioned above, or you might have goals that are just blue sky thinking, too ambitious, too optimistic, or in other words, completely unrealistic. Like you want to launch 10 new products next year, but you haven't managed to launch any in the last 3 years, or you think that you're going to be number one in the market, or you say we want to be number one in the market when currently you are among the last in your industry. So completely unrealistic goals and objectives. And finally, final sign of bad strategy is it's just an incoherent list of actions or initiatives. So like the things that I said above. A strategy must be focused. So if you have a long list of disconnected, unrelated initiatives, stuff like, marketing wants some of this, sales wants some of that, and HR wants this and that, and then there was no clear alignment between these things, doesn't make any sense. There's no sense of how these things actually work together and how they contribute to your strategy or your ambitions. So all these things are signs of bad strategy, which will lead to a lot of wasted time, wasted opportunities, and wasted resources. So good strategies, on the other hand, are clear, they are focused, they are actionable, they're also realistic, and they help you to make decisions, and they help you prioritize. So let's see in a little bit of detail what must a strategy have to actually qualify as a good strategy. So first of all, a good strategy has a diagnosis that explains the nature of the challenge or the opportunity. So it simplifies the overwhelming complexity by identifying certain aspects that are critical and crucial and vital to your situation. So Rummel, for example, talks about it separates the trivial from the crucial. So like the example that I gave you above, when the client I mentioned, the core challenge was that actually they tried to serve too many types of customers with too many products and services. So they really didn't have identified a clear customer to target. They wanted to please everybody, and this actually resulted in a lot of the challenges that they faced, a lot of the symptoms that they saw. So the root cause was really this failure to make a clear strategic choice, right? And the team had to work through it and to acknowledge that is really the crux, again, as Rummel calls it, the crux of the challenge. Second point. Now, a good strategy, once you have identified the challenge, a good strategy has a guiding overall approach, a strategic direction on how to deal with the challenge or how to seize the opportunity. So it's about overcoming. How are you going to overcome the obstacles that you have identified in the diagnosis? When defining this overall approach, it's very important to make clear choices about what are you going to do, which also means clear choices about what are you not going to do. So this helps to focus your energy, you focus your resources on one or maximum two key objectives that will make a real difference. And when making these choices, you should also combine some rigor with creativity. So obviously your strategy should be based on a solid understanding of what is going on in your company, in your industry, in your market. But don't make the mistake that I see quite often, is to think that you can deduce in some kind of logical way a strategy magically from your analysis. All this analysis, it should help you to get to a unique insight which you can then seize. And being creative can come in many different forms. So maybe you have an idea for a new innovative business model or revenue model, or you have an idea on how to leverage your unique assets in a particular way, or you are able to reframe actually your strategic position. So with the client that I was talking about, we clearly identified the target customers that they wanted to go after. We streamlined the product portfolio as a function of that in relation to these customers to match their needs, the needs of these customers. And we even then changed the organizational structure to become more aligned with the target customer and this new offering. And the creativity actually came from initially their medium size compared to competitors was seen as a disadvantage. But the focus on this particular customer segment turned this smaller size actually into a advantage. As we focused on new customers, we also developed, we had to think about what does this mean for the existing customers who no longer fit into this particular definition, and we developed a clear answer and a clear approach to what would happen with existing customers that no longer fitted the bill. So there was a clear where to focus, but there was also a clear answer on what not to do any longer. Some clients were let go, some products were discontinued, and the whole product portfolio and the organization was actually refocused on this new target customer. Now, a good strategy has then also a set of coherent actions which are designed to carry out this overall approach. So again, my client said we focus on this particular customer group, and then we have a particular offering that we want to bring to them, and then we translated that into very specific actions that could translate this or implement actually this high level thinking of where to focus and what to offer these customers. And again, here you need to make very clear choices on what to prioritize and where to put your resources. So my client developed a handful of key initiatives like reorganizing the sales organization, cleaning up the product portfolio, and establishing a team to develop a new core offering for this new market. So this was the specific actions, initiatives to implement the overall strategy, again, focusing on that particular customer segment. Next point, a good strategy is based on a theory, on a logic that explains why you will be doing this or that and why you think that it will actually work. And this logic is flowing from the diagnosis to the choices you make, to the actions you put in place. And finally, the final point of a good strategy is that it is actually doable and it's accomplishable. Right? So giving the resources and the capabilities you have, and if you don't have the capabilities, you have the resources to get them. But it needs to be doable, it needs to be realistic. So my client, for example, again, needed additional resources, both in terms of quantity and in terms of capabilities, to be able to develop that new core offering, for example. So they went out and they hired them. As they couldn't find these resources in their home market, they went for nearshoring, which again solved additional problems we had identified of higher labor costs and the lack of specialized resources in its industry, in its home market. But again, all these actions were very, very focused on the overall direction that we had defined. So thank you for watching this video on good strategy, bad strategy. Remember, having a clear and focused strategy is your ticket to success. To learn more about non-traditional approaches to strategy, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell to know when we upload new videos, and please also leave a comment below. I'm always interested in your thoughts and your questions. Thank you, and see you next time.